governance and audit on this. Let's go to Fox Business contributor Charles Payne joining us this morning, and Jeff Duncan of Duncan Financial Management in St. Louis. Thank you guys for joining us this morning. Jeff, I'll start with you. So far, as it stands, what do you think about this reform, about the financial reform that's on the table? Will this be effective?
The key factor is, how do you define too big to fail? And second, how do you define risks that these companies take on? Who can really put a solid definition on either two of these subjects is going to be the key. And I think it's going to be very difficult for the government to make these type of decisions. And it's going to be a very tough struggle to get this through, as it was with the health care bill. And the Democrats are going to be big time pushing this right up to the November elections. Whether this can get done by the November elections, I kind of doubt it.
Great point. And Charles, there's obviously going to be a lot of back and forth here, negotiations on the table. John Mack pointing out the pieces that he's very supportive of. What do you believe should be in and what should be out of this bill?
Well, you know, I've got some serious problems, because to me the bill seems more, again, the whole idea behind the administration to me is always punitive. In other words, it seems more inclined to have more, creation of more power. It's a power struggle, and to try to punish banks, particularly the larger banks. You know, like, for instance, the idea we'll take $50 billion from these banks and put it somewhere in case we ever have to wind one of them down. Well, two things, I think if we're at a point where we think we have to wind these things down, we should go ahead and use whatever we have available. I think we have antitrust regulations and things like that. Also, I think if we ever need the $50 billion, it won't be there. I'm pretty sure they'll look in the box and it'll be empty. But I don't see really a lot necessarily there. If I'm a consumer, what is there really specifically for me? I mean, this is really a struggle between, to me, it seems like Wall Street and Washington, specifically Goldman Sachs in Washington.
Well, no, it's a good point, Jeff. There's actually an op-ed in the Wall Street Journal this morning, the Dodd Bill and U.S. Competitiveness. It was by Paul Singer, founder and CEO of Elliott Management, basically pointing out that we have to be careful here for, the sake of Wall Street and the profits of these large financial institutions that have been saved and that are there. We don't want to strip them of their competitiveness and ability to make money. That's a major concern still.
Well, obviously, it's a huge concern, because there are fewer players left on Wall Street after the big washout that we have, and these institutions have become much bigger, and their tentacles are much further than they were before the washout. So I think we have to continue to identify, which I don't think the government can really make this identification, because
and we just lost Jeff's shot. We'll try to
as soon as he said government, they pulled the plug on.
But, Charles, at the end of the day, that what we're talking about is more government, more control by the government.
Absolutely. And it's so funny, because you said that question by saying we don't want to have our banks to be less competitive, and we don't want. Maybe we do want that. Maybe the powers that be do want that. I mean, listen, as they were pushing through the health care insurance reform, the president made a point of saying that health insurance companies were putting profits over patients. To me, that put the onus on the word profits as being the bad thing. And you could put that in any industry, particularly Wall Street, where we've always heard about the greed. So I think that it won't be an unintended consequence if our banks became less competitive on the global stage. And that's a shame, because, the world is catching up. And we really are. We should be digging in our heels, trying to revamp our economy. And this type of stuff, I think they could have put a lot of these bills through if they were simpler and more to the point. But they're really huge and very ambitious, and they don't really always do what they're that they're stated to do. In this particular case, I'm not saying how much more consumers are going to get in terms of safety, but I do know it's going to be a lot harder for businesses and consumers to have access to credit.
It's going to be a very sensitive balance there. All right, Charles, thank you very much. We'll try to get Jeff back for later in the hour, but thanks to him for joining us as well.